Hey everyone, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. I'm changing the name of my podcast to Pro Audio Perspectives. It reflects the show's real nature. To get the perspectives of professionals in the industry and have a conversation about how we focus on the artistic side of working in the studio. Welcome to Pro Audio Perspectives. I'm Brendan Decora, and on the show, we'll dive into the heart and soul of the music industry. I enjoy candid conversations with professionals from across the pro audio field. In each episode, we explore the emotional connections and the artistry behind the music, going beyond the technical aspects to uncover what truly inspires great performances. Thanks for joining me. Enjoy. On today's show, we have Ryan Greene. He's a producer, mixer, and engineer who's worked on albums, video games, and films. He has credits with Megadeth, NOFX, JayZ, Guitar Hero 3, Rock Band, Total Recall, Stand and Deliver, and many more. Enjoy. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
Awesome.
I look forward to this.
Yeah, it should be fun. I'd like to start if you can kind of give me your backstory, kind of what led you to engineering, how you got to where you are, that kind of thing.
Oh, boy. What brought me into engineering was actually my brother.
Okay.
So during high school, I was probably in 11th grade, my brother was going to recording school at the time.
Okay.
And he would come home with his recording school notes.
Right.
And I found his notes more interesting than my schoolwork.
Of course.
So I would start going over his recording notes, and then he would help me with my homework.
Nice.
Which was great because I didn't do well in school.
Yeah.
I actually did much better because of my brother.
Right. Nice.
So right when I graduated high school, 2 weeks later, my friend John Pratt, who was in a band, a local band in Hollywood.
Just the last episode was with John, actually.
Oh, no kidding!
Yeah, I know him very well.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, John is the reason why I have a career in the business.
Awesome. Nice.
So it was because of him.
Nice.
He was in this band Roxbury Drive.
Yeah.
And they played the Troubadour. Mm-hmm. And they had a fight with the sound man had a fight with the band.
Okay.
And Eddie, who was still owner of the Troubadour, asked John if he knew any sound men.
Yeah.
And John was like, I actually do.
Nice.
So John got me a job at the Troubadour when I was 2 weeks out of high school. I wasn't even 18.
Awesome. You hadn't even gone to recording school.
No.
Okay.
But I was doing live sound locally in town for a sound company.
Right.
And a friend of mine who was a drummer, his name is Chris Meyer. Mm-hmm. He was my best friend in high school. He was a drummer. And Chris gave me drum lessons because I was a drummer.
Right.
And Chris's brother-in-law had a recording studio. So I was always in the recording studio and always doing live sound, just doing something with it. And when I was working at the Troubadour, I was also going to recording school. I went to the same school my brother went to.
Right.
And I never graduated.
No?
So funny story was they required a maintenance class.
Okay.
And the teacher that was teaching the maintenance class covered 19 chapters of electronics in a 4-hour session.
What?
And I was like, I can't deal with this. My brain does not work that way.
That's crazy.
And I ended up, just laughing. I laughed my way out of the class.
Yeah.
And I went down and I just told the school that when you get another teacher, then I'll come back and I'll finish. So went home, and next day I ended up getting a job at a party rental company moving tables and chairs. Mm-hmm. And a couple weeks after that, I was sitting watching the Flintstones.
Right.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to call the school and see if they have any referrals.
Right.
Which you're not supposed to do.
Yeah.
Because you have to graduate to be able to get a referral.
Right,
and he said, actually, we do.
Huh.
So they referred me to MCA Music.
Okay.
And the classic story is I booked the interview, got in my car the next morning, car didn't start.
Oh, no.
And I had to call, and I kept calling, and they finally were gracious enough to book another appointment with me.
Right.
And I went into the office, and it was this gentleman, Scott James, who was head of the TV division at MCA. And he said, "So I'm looking at where you live, and you grew up in Thousand Oaks." And I said, "I did." And he says, "Are you a typical Thousand Oaks flake?"
What?
And I'm like, "I don't think I am." I would say that that would be a no on that question. And he said, "Well, what football team do you like better, Thousand Oaks High or Newberry Park High?"
What?
And I'm thinking, this is the weirdest interview I think I probably will ever have.
Oh, geez.
And I said, "Well, I went to Thousand Oaks High, so I'm going to say Thousand Oaks High."
Right.
And he said, "You got the job." He goes, "I went to Thousand Oaks High too."
Okay.
Because I really admired you calling as many times as you did.
Right.
And I wanted to make sure that you really wanted the position. So they hired me as a tape duplicator for the first year.
Nice.
Francis Buckley, who's an engineer at the time, he was the chief engineer for MCA. He came to one of my live shows that I was doing for John's band.
Right.
Heard the sound. He goes, "This sounds like a record." I told him I want to do records. A year later, I was promoted from the tape room to first engineer at MCA Music.
Nice.
And from that, I worked at MCA for about 4 years.
Okay.
And started to get the itch to do something different.
Right.
And Scott James' wife, Livia, was working over at SBK Music, which then turned into EMI Music.
Right.
I called and asked if I could get any side work. It's like I'm working from 10 to 6.
Right.
I could do an 11, or I could do a 7 to 2 a.m. session. I could work weekends.
Right.
And it was all first engineering, no assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, "Well, we're not looking for any outside engineers, but are you interested in the chief engineer position?"
Wow.
And that was when I was 24 years old.
Okay.
And I took that position.
Nice.
And that's how I ended up getting my start.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
it was a whirlwind. We spoke about this when you were setting up, that it's the right place, right time, but it's also, I feel, it didn't matter what job I had in the business. I knew what I wanted to do eventually, and all paths will always lead to what you want.
Exactly.
If you really want it. It's all in or all out.
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
And nowadays, are you doing more production, engineering, mixing? Is there anything you...
So, over my course of 40 years in the business, which is amazing because I'm 28.
Right. Of course.
So, I did so much producing, engineering, and mixing that I'm really trying to take a step back from the production part of it, and really would like to focus more on just mixing.
Okay.
I think that's where at some point I would really like to land. Not saying that I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty particular in when working with the band.
Right.
I have a rule that don't say no. I suggest something, and I have a big mouth. A lot of people think that I'm pretty quiet, but when I'm in a room that I actually have an opinion, and it's probably just not one, it is many.
Right.
So, the drummer could lay down a great track, and then I will suggest drum parts, and that will lead to bass parts, and much easier to try something for 30 seconds than debate it for 10 and then blow the vibe of the session. Right. So
I'm actually wondering, do you do a lot of like pre-production when you're doing stuff like that with bands?
It's really interesting. To me, it doesn't matter if I listen to the song once or listen to it multiple times. If I know, I'll always ask the band what their vision is.
Right.
And what what the real expectation would be, because we want to be able to capture that.
Yeah.
And realizing and explaining that their expectation of what they're looking for may fall a little bit short for a multitude of reasons.
Right.
One, you're not that band.
Right.
So you could try to be that,
Yeah.
or maybe you could try to just be you.
Right.
And
in the end, you don't really want to be another band anyway, because then you're just copycats.
you're just a copycat.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of like when a band asked me that, I said, well, remember, I worked on Guitar Hero 3. I had to do re-records from scratch with drums,
Right.
bass
Wow.
guitar, and work those tracks to make it sound exactly like
Wow.
an artist that you thought was actually the artist.
That's
So
crazy.
careful what you wish for, because if you want to sound like this, I could probably come close, but you will always fall short.
Right. Right. That's interesting. I actually worked on some of those Guitar Hero projects, but it was always just like the mix projects where they would get the multi-tracks and have to recreate the mixes. I didn't even know that there are people starting from scratch with them.
Oh, yeah. My partner in that, Steve Wilmette, which he was the lead, he would go through, he would tempo map the original track.
Right.
And then we would hire a drummer. It was Gary Sanchez. And Ryan Hoyle, also from Collective Soul, played on some tracks.
Okay.
But a lot of it was Gary, and he was in a local cover band. And we would, Steve and I were so detailed that we would want, you would have to, every cymbal hit would have to match.
Right.
Oh, you know what? He went to the left cymbal, not the right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you would go through, I would tune the drums, get them to sound as close as we could, and then we would just move through the project.
Right. That's crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
and then found a sound-like singer for a lot of those as well.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I like to talk about a lot on the podcast is kind of how to inspire artists in the studio to, have great performances. When you're first kind of getting to know an artist and you're producing them, let's say, how do you sort of make sure that they're ready for the studio in that sense?
I don't know. I just tell them, don't suck.
Right?
It's like, look, you know what? This is supposed to be a creative space.
Right.
So, and this is also a very safe space. So bring in your energy.
Right.
Bring in the right energy. The studio will have that energy. But know that if something takes 5 minutes or an hour, don't stress about it. We're in this together.
Right.
Right? So we're in this creative space. I'm here to capture what you're doing. You may have an opinion about what you're doing,
Right.
but we're here to capture. And that, never worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry. It's my job. If I'm producing, it's my job to worry. It's my job to worry about the budget, time,
Right.
management. All I ask for the artist is show up.
Yeah.
Just want you to show up and bring your A game. Don't go out and get drunk or do drugs before you walk into the studio, because it's going to make it a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
And I'm going to probably have a problem with you.
Right.
Right. But that's really it. It's just it's really, I think a lot of it is just showing up and bringing in a positive attitude.
Yeah.
And no, don't stress. And I will crack jokes. King of dad jokes.
Of course.
I think every engineer producer probably is.
Yeah, of course. Same.
So, it's and it's just keeping it fun and making sure that they realize that don't worry about the fact that this is going to be captured forever.
Right.
Don't worry if your children's grandchildren are going to hear you like completely screw up. Don't worry about that.
Right.
It's going to be fine.
That's awesome. I mean, I know you say that, but it's difficult, especially, working with artists that don't have big budgets and that do have very limited amount of time in the studio. Like, how do you manage that when they aren't performing or they're not inspired or whatever, and you're against the timeline? Like, what do you do in that case?
It's I think it's setting up expectations.
Okay.
So I think going into a project, it's always letting them know what those are, and it's laying them out.
Right.
And if somebody's trying to play above their playing ability, then I'm honest. It's like, you know what? Maybe in a few years you could do that, or I could bring somebody in that will be able to do that,
Right.
or we could approach it to where you're at right now and probably a little bit more advanced than what you are now, and then you will grow into that player.
Right.
But if you're working on an intro of a guitar part for an hour,
Yeah.
and then you know what? Then maybe we either can somebody else in the band play it?
Right.
I mean, there's times where there's been sessions where I've had to go out and do drum fills or play a beat for a drummer. They're like, you know what? Why don't you just do it? It'll be quicker. And it's just being a safe environment for whoever the best player is. No ego. Do not have an ego when you come in.
Right.
Especially if you're a band that's just starting out.
Right. Can you describe a project that has pushed the creative boundaries of your production style?
I think I always try to push it more than bands are think that they can go. I mean, I'm not a Trent Reznor.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Nor do I have the time to do those records. A lot of times, I mean, I did, 10 years doing, bands, punk rock bands on Fat Records and Epitaph and that we had 2 weeks to do a record. How much production can you get done on those records?
Right.
Well, you can make sure that the playing is good.
Right.
And you could add as much as you can, but I always want more. There's a band Bisto Blanco that I did a record that the producer engineer that did the record beforehand. I listened to that record and I was like, oh my god, the drum loops and all this. It's like I don't know if I'll be able to do that. And then the record that I ended up doing, I actually was surprised that I'll do this. Oh, you know what? Maybe I'll just do a keyboard part on this. And next thing you know, it turned into this huge production that actually ended up working well with the band.
Okay.
So, but,
Nice.
Sometimes it doesn't have to be a huge production. Sometimes it's about the part.
Right.
Right. And, and I think that's foundationally what I look at. It's like, are your parts good?
Yeah.
Because once the parts are good, then you can have a little fun.
Absolutely. And what you just said may be the answer to this next question, but what's the most underrated aspect of music production, do you think?
Underrated. We can go to the next question.
Oh, geez.
I don't know. It's like I don't think that anybody that has not been in the room would really quite understand the details. It's like making a movie.
Yeah.
Nobody would know how important it is for like the little details. Like, for me, the only way that I could have done records that I did in the turnaround, because again, sometimes we're doing 17 songs in a 14-day period.
Right. Jesus.
So, 11, 12, 13, and 14th day are mixing 17 songs. And people, you'd read reviews and it's like, people could tear that stuff apart.
Right.
Well, yeah, but let's see if you could do it that fast at that level.
Right.
But the only thing that I was able to get through those records was my assistant at the time, Adam Kramer. And Adam was one of those guys that once I'm set up, I don't need anyone.
Yeah.
I don't even need anybody to patch on a mic. I don't need anybody to do any patching for me. I can walk in the studio and do it all.
Yeah.
But what the Adam's value was, this is what I'm doing the next day. And Adam, I would walk in, console would be up, session would be up. Before Pro Tools, we were 2-inch, have the reel up, microphones up, everything.
Right.
And if anything happened where the console went down, that he would make sure that it was up the next day. So the value of a good assistant, there would have been no way that I could have done the records I was doing. I was working, from 11 in the morning until 2, sometimes 3 in the morning, 7 days a week.
Right.
So that flow, I needed somebody that really had my back, and Adam did.
Of course.
From the technical part of it, from if there was anything new that came out, Adam would learn it.
Right.
He would explain it to me, and then I would bastardize it, because that's what we do as engineers.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this thing does this. Great. Can we do this? And,
Right.
and I always go, I'll always go to 10 and work my way back, because you never know what it can do until you go to the extreme.
Of course.
And then,
Nice.
yeah.
That's awesome.
He was the most underrated thing in production.
Awesome. Nice. And what's your perspective on the evolving role of music producers?
Well, just because
what is the role, actually?
Well, I mean, just because you
that.
have Pro Tools does not mean you're a producer.
Right.
So let's just be really clear and be and no joke about that. I think that people who glamorize what a producer is, it's not really that glamorous. I mean, it's great that that people have trust in you and will work with you, that bands will hire you for maybe what you do, and you're there to capture their vision.
Right.
Maybe there to help them push their vision to maybe something that they didn't know that it could go to, or at least give them that option. But you're also in charge of the budgets.
Right.
And you're in kind of like your role is people showing up on time, and it's not walking up to somebody going, "I'm a producer."
Right.
No, it's a lot more than that, and I think it takes a lot of trust for a band to really believe in that person that they're hiring, and it has to be the right one.
Right.
I mean, we've all seen people that that get a gig as a producer, engineer, and then they lose that gig because they end up with the God complex.
Right.
And that's when I think you stop respecting the band, and should never. You're there because of the band. Right. Let's just face it. Otherwise you're going to be on your couch waiting for the phone to ring.
Right. Exactly.
So it's knowing that you're working with the band. You're there because of the band, and you should be there to support the band.
Right. Awesome. Nice. And when it comes to mixing, how do you balance, and this can be applied to production too, of course, but how do you balance the artistic creativity with the technical demands of mixing?
What do you consider technical demands? I'll throw it back on you.
I mean, I don't know.
I mean, so ask the question again.
Well, I guess the idea is, how do you, I always tell my clients, mixing is infinite. I could literally take this in any direction you possibly want. So I spend time trying to figure out their creative vision and their direction they want to go and that kind of thing, so that I know which road to take, basically.
Okay, so I think I think you just nailed a point that should be talked about. That to me, I was taught that you build in the production. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So when I get drum sounds, the band, well, one, the drummer is happy with them. I don't care what the singer says. It's like, I want the drummer to be happy. He has to be excited. Sorry, singers. Just the way it is. You'll get your turn, trust me. Yeah. We'll melodyne you. It's going to be okay. But somebody that records flat drums. Right. So they're let's say they're on a limited budget, and they record flat drums. Right. Now you're doing a bass guitar, and now you're putting that up against drums and going, well, it sounds good, to these flat drums, and then you put the guitar on top, and it's like everything flat, meaning just tone. There's not a lot of brightness. There's not a lot of depth of field, because everything that you're
Just
comparing
neutral.
it to, it's just flat.
Right.
It doesn't have any excitement to it. And then they bring it to you, and they say, "Oh, okay, mix this now."
Right.
Okay, what do you want it to sound like? I love this one. Man, I just want it to sound good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the
okay.
worst.
Well, let's have a
Yeah.
conversation about what you think
Yeah.
is good, because obviously your perspective is completely skewed of
Right.
what is good and what is not. Because what you think is good is this stuff that you're not happy with because you're bringing it to me to mix,
Right. Yeah.
or in that case, to fix.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel that that build in your production. So that way, when it gets to a mixer, you could talk about the really important things of what you want it to sound like, what you have now, what are you looking for from this? Not it. I just want it to sound good. Too
Right.
subjective.
Right.
But if you build in the production, if you put the delay on the guitar, or the phaser on this, or whatever on whatever, you can, it's a bazillion plugins, as we know, that you kind of have an idea. When you pull up those faders, you should have an idea of,
Right.
I kind of see where
Should be
they're
obvious,
going
yeah.
with this.
Yeah.
So it's those things.
That's
It's
true.
really,
Yeah.
really like building it in. Don't be afraid to build it in. But if you're going to record something completely flat, then then how do you know what you want your song to sound like?
Right.
I want to sound like a rock band, but your songs sound nothing
I've actually
like that.
had it go both ways, even recently, where, it sort of applies to, because a lot of artists self-produce nowadays.
Right.
And so they don't know the direction to go. They don't know to print all these things and really kind of steer it. Sometimes I get projects where they've worked with a producer. Their sounds are very clear. It's very obvious. But a lot of people don't. And sometimes it's kind of the opposite, where they'll, go to a studio or work with someone that tries to do all of like the tricks.
Right.
And like they've watched YouTube or something. And so, oh, this is a cool technique. Let me do this. And I get the songs to mix, and it's like, this is too many tricks, and my hands are tied in a sense. So it's like, it's about the education of, learning the direction to go, but also doing it in a way where you still have the latitude in the mix to improve it and make changes,
But sometimes when things are built in, that it's what sounds good, what is right.
Right.
And for me, I found that it's not about the best sound; it's about the right sound. Mm-hmm. So, you could have the perfect snare sound and then put that into your mix, and it never fits.
Right.
Right. So, at least if somebody is self-producing, then maybe just hold up, do a little comparison shopping, even though that most things that we hear, unless you're going to go to Tidal and really get a really high quality, but at least listen, use your ears a little bit.
Right.
It's okay to self-produce. I've had some projects that I've mixed that somebody has self-produced, and it's like, oh man, this is like really good.
Yeah,
You made
same,
choices that
yeah.
I would have never made, and it's really cool.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Absolutely.
But, to me, just handing a project to somebody and going, just make it sound good, and everything, nothing has any vibe to it.
Right.
But doesn't make you feel something. It has to make you feel something. When you were tracking, when that drummer is kicking, it was a Myron Grumbacher that was playing with Pat Benatar way back in the day. I worked with Myron, and Myron said that if when he's listening to his drum tracks played back, if the snare doesn't make him go, and the kick drum doesn't make his cheeks do this, it's not working for him. So he wants to go. He wants to have that reaction,
Right.
right? So, but he feels something. But if sound doesn't make you feel any emotion, if it's just
Right.
vanilla, and it could sound great,
Yeah.
but it should trigger something in you. Mm-hmm. I feel aggressive. I feel happy. I feel sad. I want to go a million miles an hour. I want to go, do something.
Right.
Just something. Just print something that's going to make you feel something.
Right.
It's not just singing. It's just feeling the emotion. Feel the emotion of every word.
Right.
When you're playing your guitars, and this is a huge rant, but
okay.
there's a guitar player. His name is Luke. He plays in this band Good Riddance. Mm-hmm. And when Luke plays. It's like in the studio. It's
Right.
like he's attacking it, but his technique is so good that it's not banging the guitar out of tune, but you could feel, back in the day, you could feel the guitar, popping out.
Right.
He's playing with emotion, not just playing.
Right.
So that's my thing. If you're going to play, everything has to have an intent. If you hit a crash cymbal, you play it with intent.
Right.
You just don't do it just because.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that's, obviously music is all about emotion, and it helps it translate to the audience because that's what they're listening for, and that's what resonates with them. And,
and that's all the bands that we grew up with.
Absolutely.
And, you listen to those records, and that's why a lot of bands, to me, well, I shouldn't say a lot, but there are bands out there that sound very similar.
Yeah.
It's the same sound, same compression, same everything. Mm-hmm. And songs are really good, but everything is similar. Take a chance. Don't try to be doing what everybody else is doing.
Right.
Believe in yourself. Believe in your music. Dare to be different, because every band that you grew up with that you're like, oh my God, they were the ones that took the chance.
Right. Absolutely.
Be that band.
Yeah.
Inspire.
Exactly.
Inspire people to take this and do something else.
Right.
Like, what is metal now? Well, back in the day, Judas Priest and Iron Maiden was metal.
Yeah.
Now it's almost like they feel like they're pop rock in comparison
Exactly.
to what metal is. But,
exactly.
but without those bands, we would have probably never have achieved this. And that's the same thing for every single genre.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
my rant's done.
That's okay. Awesome. What's the most significant change you've observed in music production over your career?
Wow. I think there's been in what part of music production? Because that is, again, it is a loaded question, because I could look at, even just workflow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I grew up on consoles.
Yeah.
Had a 4000E and a 9000J, and next thing you know, we're now have Pro Tools,
right.
and going everything in the box, and now you have all these options of all the plugins and all the different flavors, and knowing that an 1176 in here may not sound exactly like the 1176 I have there,
right.
but it's a flavor. I look at everything in the box now as a flavor. I don't really look at it as this is what it sounds like. Mm-hmm. So it's flavors. You have a bazillion flavors. So I think that in production, you have an endless amount of flavors.
Right.
And it didn't used to be as easy. Mm-hmm. And that's why you had to commit back in the day.
Yeah.
You had players that came in and knew the songs. Mm-hmm. They would work in, pre-production for, they would write the songs and take a lot of time to write the songs,
right.
play them as a band. Producer would go in and work with the band. Mm-hmm. Now a lot of times you might get a demo.
Right.
So the production part of that changes quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And you have to be versatile.
Yeah.
So I think that in some ways you have to be a little bit more versatile now than you used to, because you used to have big budgets that you had time.
Right.
Now we don't have those big budgets, and now we have less time. But they want how it used to be.
Right. And it's tricky because there's less time, but there's also less committing too.
Right.
It's like you get a mix with 300 tracks on it. It's like, why didn't you make decisions, you know?
And that's such a good point. 100%. I ended up getting a mix project where they did rhythm tracks, a left and right, 8 times, all different guitars.
8 times?
8 times.
Jeez.
What I loved was the labeling, by the way.
Okay.
Labeling was a mess because I had to actually call them and go, I don't even know which one's left or right.
Right.
You just took them all and you just kind of panned them all in various ways.
Jeez.
So there was no stereo. It all just sounded like one crappy mono guitar.
Jeez.
Besides that, it was just, make a decision. What do you want it to sound like?
Right.
At least give a blend of what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, you have 300 tracks, and then somebody says, "Hey, can you mix this? We could pay for a day,
Right.
and it'll take you 2 days just to set up the mix template because of all the tracks.
Just to organize it.
Make a commit." And I think that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Is don't send a mix person a million tracks.
Right.
Don't leave it up to them.
Right.
If you have specific things, then yes, maybe this cleaner guitar would be better. Most people could go too distorted on the guitars anyhow to get really specific. But at least have a couple options, not 300 options.
Right. No, it's interesting because it's almost like, people are, the people that are less experienced almost expect the mixer to be the producer.
Right.
So it's like you have to kind of educate and talk to them and figure out where they're at and work
100%.
with people. And, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I love bands that reach out before they get to the track, before they even start tracking.
Yeah.
Hey, we're thinking about hiring you as a mix engineer. It's like, okay. So if that's the case, this is what I would suggest to do, even if you don't use me as a mixer.
Right.
Because I don't care. I want to make it easy for everyone.
Yeah.
Whether you're using me or you're going to use a friend of mine or somebody I don't know, I'm going to feel for the guy that gets all these tracks if somebody doesn't say something in the beginning. Right. So, I'll sit down and talk with the band and go through and just kind of explain the process and what it would be like on this end. I also have a very specific way I like everything sent to me, labeling. So that way it cuts down on my template time because you're going to get billed for it.
Right.
So would you rather me spend 2 hours, 3 hours setting up my mix template or an hour setting up my mix template and I have 2 more hours to actually do what you hired me to do?
Right.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Is there any current or recent projects that you can talk about that you want to?
There's nothing that I'm doing right now that is worth talking about at the moment.
Okay.
At the moment.
Right.
There is somebody that I'm working with that I've known for quite a while. It is a country song. I'm going to give you little bits of information.
Okay.
We did this quite a while ago. It's the first song that anybody will ever hear me play drums on from top to bottom.
Okay.
I'm not saying the drum parts are great, but or I'm even playing in time, but I did play on it. Finally, I was able to. I've always wanted to play something. I wanted to play a song, and it's somebody who I really believe in with all my heart. And it's one of those things that if it does something, great. If it doesn't, we know that we did something together.
Right.
And I love that. I love projects like that. I love people that that have heart. I want to work with people that have heart, that want to make a career of being in music, and love it. And it's not just a thing. Music's not just a thing. Music is everything.
Right.
We couldn't live without it.
Absolutely.
And every project to me is special.
Nice.
And I know it sounds cheesy and it's
No, for
cliche
sure.
and it's it's Hallmark.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is that I have bands that contact me every day, and I'll listen to something, and I'm like, "Tell me about your project. Tell me about what you're looking to do." Oh, it's just something we threw together. I'm the wrong guy.
Right.
This is something. This song really means a lot to our band or this project. We've had to fight. We have had to do all these things to be able to make it.
Right.
You know what? I'm your guy.
Nice.
I'm all in. If I say I'm going to be all in, I am all in.
Right.
I'll give you parameters of what I can and cannot do, how much time. And I think that's really important for newer bands that are just getting into it, and also, engineer and producers that are just starting out. Is you don't want to be like I was. I missed out on probably 30 years of going on vacations. I've had 5 vacations my whole life.
Right. Jesus.
I spent my whole time in the studio where I had friends that had boundaries. They would take weekends off, and I never took the time.
Right.
But it worked for me. But I don't wish that life on anyone. You should be able to enjoy your life and enjoy being in the studio in a place that's creative. It's like we met over at East West.
Yeah.
And you walk into that room, and right now you could see I have goosebumps. Don't look too carefully. But I walked into that room, and you walk into the control room, and there you don't get that feeling in a bedroom.
Right.
And my suggestion is every engineer, producer in the world that has never been in a studio like that should save their money and just do one day in their dream studio. One day.
Right.
It could be $2,000, and you may have to save for 5 years.
Right.
It doesn't matter. Do that, because going to one of those studios will change your life forever.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Forever.
Yeah. Absolutely. I like to wrap up each podcast with the same few questions, if you don't mind.
I'm in trouble now.
The first question I have is, who is your most influential teacher?
I have 2.
That's fine.
One's a Hallmark answer, which would be my mom.
Okay. Yeah.
Wouldn't be doing what I do if it wasn't for her love and support. Which then falls into, after my mom passed, my sister and my brother. So my whole family unit has always been supportive, no matter how crazy I got. And trust me, I've gotten pretty crazy in this whole world. That love and support has always been there. In the engineering side, it would be Max Norman.
Okay.
And Max produced the first 3 Ozzy records, Megadeth,
Nice.
a lot of the rock records. And when I met Max, he came into the studio. I was doing pre-production with this band Dangerous Toys, and Max came in and asked me. He goes, "Oh, what mics do you have on the toms?" And I said, "Oh, they're 421s." And he goes, "You want to try these mics that I use?" They're the Buyer 201s, and he brought them in the next day. And from that moment on, any engineering question I ever had, like, "Max, I'm having an issue with my cymbals.
Right.
What would you do?" And he was so open and honest. And his thing was that I will tell you everything.
Right.
Just so you know, you'll never be able to do what I do because you don't have my ears.
Exactly.
And I was like, this is brilliant.
Yeah. No,
Absolutely
exactly. I've always been the same way. It's like, I'm happy to, and a lot of the people I work with are the same. Like the whole industry sort of is like, no secrets, because for that reason, like I could give you the exact settings of everything that I've done, and it won't be the same.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Yeah, it's
crazy.
Somebody could share, and then you'll try it on the project and go, well, this doesn't work. But if I make adjustments, all of a sudden it opens your eyes to something, and it helps develop your sound. Don't worry about somebody else's sound.
Right.
Create your own. Somebody's going to hire you because of what you do, not being a copycat to somebody else.
Exactly. The next question may or may not apply. I've actually found that it's not applying to most of my guests, believe it or not. But what is your favorite reference track if you have to go to a new studio?
Oh, yeah.
Do you use reference tracks? A lot of people work in their own places. They don't care anymore.
Yeah. I put on something that I feel that always rocks me, which is Dr. Feelgood.
Okay.
Motley Crue.
Nice.
I think that is just such a it's a big room. Everything's defined. You can hear everything really clear, but it has a vibe. Man, I crank that up when I'm in a new studio, and not saying that I'm referencing the sound of the room a little bit, more than it's just pumping me up going, you know what? I would have loved to have done that record. I'm so glad I didn't. Right. Because it would have never been that. And that record was inspiring to me. That and Lynch Mob, Wicked Sensation, which Max did. I mean, these are all like 80s records. But, freaking, I want to walk into a room and put on the big speakers and fucking just go. Oh, yeah. I'm here in a big studio, and I'm going to do something that's going to be as inspiring as this was to me. Right. And that's what I listen to.
Exactly.
Something that's going to inspire me.
Nice. That's awesome. And last question is, what would be one tidbit for an upcoming engineer?
Take care of your business.
Yeah.
Business. I think a lot of... I think we were in a day and age that engineers on the financial side, that they kind of get lost in the shuffle, especially people that have their home studios or their own studios. Right. I've owned my own big studios, and I have now my little mix room that I love, but this stuff ain't cheap. Yeah. It's not, no matter how you look at it. Yeah. I mean, I'm buying it because I want to do it as a living. Right. But, it has to get paid off, and I want it to get paid off because of what I'm doing. Right. But once it's paid off, but there's also maintenance. Yeah. I mean, I used to, think you heard the story where a band couldn't afford mastering. Right. And I sold one of my guitar amps to help them pay for mastering. Damn. Nice. But everybody in that band was capable of coming up with the money. Right. But there was no way that I was going to let that record get unmastered. Right. And they were fine with me selling the amp. Right. So, I was just putting back into what I do, but value your time and energy, and just take care of your business. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This has been fun. Awesome. Nice. Yeah. Until the next time. Definitely. Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for joining in today on Pro Audio Perspectives. Make sure to hit subscribe, and I'll see you next week.